Welcome to this episode of The Standing Ovation.
Yeah, I was at Wells Fargo for about 23 years and held a number of senior roles there. And in the last number of years I was there, I led merchant services for Wells Fargo, which was the largest merchant acquirer. And part of the reason is because we were also the bank sponsor for PayPal, Stripe, Square, Braintree, and many others. And so all of that volume flowed through, in addition to having lots of direct merchants from small businesses, mid-market, all the way up to some of the largest enterprises in the world. And then from there, I found myself at the center of payments, and I ended up becoming the chief revenue officer of a company called Point, P-O-Y-N-T, Point. Point was a competitor to Clover and Square and PayPal, and we got bought by GoDaddy. I was the chief revenue officer there, and then joined Ovation CXM after that, and I did some consulting as well. And then I've been here for about 2.5 years. Yeah, so I'm the chief revenue officer here. Yeah, so I'll use Wells Fargo Merchant Services as an example, and it was a very complex ecosystem. You had the Merchant Services joint venture, which was a joint venture between First Data, now Fiserv, and Wells Fargo. And so you had Fiserv as the processor, and you had hardware providers, software providers like Clover, legacy First Data hardware, et cetera. And then you had other lines of business within Wells Fargo. So you had small business banking and other groups like payroll and other groups within the bank. Typically, banks have lots of lines of business. And then you have other third parties as well, other software providers that you're working with. So it's a very complex ecosystem, and you're trying to manage customer experiences instead of at touch points that are disparate across those systems. You're trying to create connected journeys really across this, so it feels seamless for the customer, and it's fully branded for the brand that you're representing. At the time, I was representing Wells Fargo, so we wanted a fully branded Wells Fargo experience where everyone in the ecosystem could collaborate. Whether you're a support team at First Data sitting in one part of the world, or you're a business banking team sitting at Wells Fargo in another part of the world, we wanted to be able to connect and collaborate together. But oftentimes, these big enterprises have many different CRM systems, many different ticketing and support systems. Then you've got the third-party systems, and those systems do not talk to one another. So the data is not connected. So what ends up happening is you get very, fragmented experiences as an end merchant, as a customer, and you're having to deal with multiple organizations that don't really have full visibility to what's going on. And so all of that creates lots of challenges in an organization. And so, yeah, that's the environment that you're really working in today. And it's no different for most banks, and it's no different for most enterprises or even fintech companies. Whatever vertical you're in, as everything becomes more digitized, firms are having to build more connectors to more services and capabilities that they don't build in-house. And as firms do acquisitions and they acquire other firms, you're bringing on other technology that's often not connected to the databases or the systems you're using. And so all of that creates this opportunity to build connections and to build journeys that move across internal and external organizations, and that connect team members so that ultimately the customer and the team members supporting the customer have complete visibility to any process, whether it's a buying process or a customer support process or an onboarding or activation process or an ongoing servicing process. Yeah, so the customer experience ends up being minimized, right? You can't have a great customer experience in that sort of an ecosystem. So if you start with buying journeys, oftentimes customers were working with the bank directly, but then the bank would be working with a third party to complete the sales process. And so there'd be some sort of a referral made into another organization. And the minute that referral is made, the bank loses sight of where that referral is in the process. And so as a third party is following up with a merchant, and the merchant wants to get updates on where they are, if they call the bank will have no visibility to what's going on. And so for the customer, that ends up being a poor experience, because then they have to wait until the individual at Wells Fargo or the bank gets back to them, because they then have to go and connect with some third party. In this case, it was Fiserv. So this idea of customer experience can be solved, right, when you begin to connect those ecosystems. Another example is onboarding. So in the merchant business, customers are ordering hardware that they use for in-store payments, card present payments, and the merchant wants to know, when was my account approved? Is it approved? Has the hardware shipped? When's it supposed to arrive? When it arrives, what do I do next? How do I get set up? When I get set up, what do I need to do to activate and get my first transactions running? And today, most organizations don't have any visibility to that across that ecosystem. So the bank isn't going to know what the processor is doing and where they're at and what's up next. And the processor isn't necessarily going to know what the bank or any other third party is doing. And so the merchant doesn't have visibility to that. So the opportunity there is, can you provide a system that provides the merchant with visibility to every single step that's occurring, when it's supposed to occur, who's got the ball, if you will, who do I call if I need support, what's the expectation about what's next? And if everyone in the system, the ecosystem, has that common visibility, that can create a far better customer experience. So those were just a few of the problems that merchants would run into, but you find the same sorts of challenges in all kinds of vertical industries, whether it be healthcare or whether it be retail or travel. You run into sorts of same opportunities across different verticals and different ecosystems. Typically in the activation and onboarding experience, particularly for merchants or any customer that's going to be receiving a piece of hardware or a piece of equipment, that tends to be an area where there's lower customer satisfaction and there's higher attrition. We saw, we saw really high attrition rates, right, at activation and onboarding. And that's because customers, again, don't have visibility to when the hardware is shipping, what needs to happen to get it activated, the speed to activation, and the next steps. So there's particular issues, opportunities around activating and onboarding customers. You can think about verticals like Ring or Arlo that sell security hardware, same sort of an opportunity. So anyway, there are many challenges with activation and onboarding that are particularly important. And they're also important because they start the relationship, they set the tone for a relationship, because it's the first step the customer is really engaging in the process. And if that doesn't go well and seamlessly, then you've got, you've set a bad experience right from the start. Wherever you've got friction in a process, you'll have KPIs that are probably not performing as high as you'd like them to. What we typically see is that call volumes are inflated into support centers. So you're carrying a lot of unnecessary operating expense, because there's this dynamic of organizations having to call around and sort of ping pong, if you will, with calls in order to get to an answer. And so all of those calls coming into support teams, into sales teams, from one organization to another, the emails that go back and forth, the Excel files that have to get mailed back and forth. Once you have common visibility, and the merchant or the customer has common visibility to what's happening in a process, all of those calls go away. The calls that are required in order for people to understand, where am I, what's next, who's, what is the status? All that goes away. And we typically see significant reductions in support call volumes across the ecosystem as customers are more informed. So there's a host of metrics that we look at. And when we do an engagement with a client, we will focus in on the right KPIs. Some of those are around revenue growth. Some of those are around customer retention. Some of those are around, NPS scores and satisfaction. Some of those are around reducing operating expenses. And in some cases, it's all of the above. We'll see improvements across the board, depending upon the implementation. But yeah, those are some things to be looking for: ways to reduce operating expense, ways to improve NPS and satisfaction, and ways to improve revenue growth. most organizations will try to solve this internally by building out capabilities within their existing tech stack. So they might take a software like Salesforce and try to extend built capabilities within Salesforce to solve these problems. And the truth is, Salesforce is not designed to solve these problems, and it doesn't have the capability today to solve those problems. Likewise, companies will try to invest in their ticketing systems and try to extend those into areas that solve this, but those systems are not also designed to solve these problems. So trying to build, and then the problem is, even if you're building, whether it's homegrown technology or building an extension out of an existing software platform, those projects are expensive. And even when you get them done, in order to make ongoing revisions and changes and new adds to those systems, it takes time and money. And you have a development team that you have to get on a roadmap, you put in requests, it takes time for those development teams to make those changes. So it's a very costly, very time-consuming process. That's one. The other would be that many firms have tried to create like SharePoint sites where they're creating, dashboards, web-hosted sites where they're trying to share information, but that really lacks the integration into the existing systems, and it lacks the ability for the merchants or the end customers to be involved. Those are usually internal support tools. And inevitably, even when you go to those sites, you're having to toggle between multiple platforms, and you're getting information that's not really integrated into the systems that you're working with. So integrations can be costly, and if firms try to go out and build all these integrations themselves to third parties to try to get the information flowing, those integrations can be expensive and take time. And then if they're not done right or they have to be updated, it's expensive to maintain. So, we really solve all of those problems in that we provide a solution that's purpose-built to solve these problems, and it connects to those existing systems like CRM systems, ticketing systems through what we call pre-built connectors, because we already have integrations to the major software platforms out there. We do the integrations work for the enterprise, and then our data is integrated into existing systems, so that ultimately we're giving you a solution that is truly designed to solve these problems. And it's a low-code, no-code software, so that if you want to make changes to journeys or to web chat or web AI, anybody in the organization can go in and actually make those changes on the fly, given it's a no-code tool. So you don't have to wait for development resources, much less expensive to administer and much more agile in terms of being able to develop and fix things and improve things on the fly. Yeah, so there are some players in the marketplace that are beginning to try to build tools that help customers with specific journeys, and that's like a customer-facing solution. But we see those as point solutions that are solving a particular customer flow. The challenge with that is that, in our experience, those are not integrated into the enterprise heavy systems that they're using, the CRM systems, the ticketing systems, other third-party systems, other homegrown developed systems that are there. And so it becomes disconnected. I mean, it might improve a particular point, what I'd call a point interaction, a journey through a particular experience. It's not an integrated solution that's going to solve the broader sets of problems. And so when we start by focusing in on the internal workflows and journeys that the enterprise and its partners are using to manage and drive the business, and we start by doing journey mapping, it's usually a half-day session. We come in, we're meeting with a very large sort of cross-functional working team within the enterprise and with their partners, and we literally go through every step in a journey and define, is this step working, what's good, what's not good, who are the teams involved, what are the databases and the systems being used, what's the customer view of this, what's the internal view of this. And once we build those journey maps and have them completed, then we start solutioning against those, and then we start by prioritizing our roadmap with what's most important to solve for the customer internally. And then we start building those journeys internally. And because the enterprise has those journeys built, it is improving those workflows significantly. There's collaboration that's happening. there's visibility that's there, there's reporting and analytics and insights to those journeys and what's happening that's never been available before. And all of that allows them to ultimately serve the customer much better. And in our view, that's the right place to start. It ultimately impacts the customer experience more than would building a point journey that's customer facing, because that is what we would call disconnected, right? And what we're trying to do is actually solve that problem by connecting the internal systems and internal workflows and enabling the enterprise to truly have the ability to serve their customers seamlessly across multiple lines of business, third parties, across all of the journeys that they go through, linking back into all of the databases and the systems that need to be updated in order for the enterprise to function. Yeah, I mean, I think we're set really far apart from anybody in the space, and that the ultimate proof of that is in the fact that when we're selling into customers today in any vertical, in my 2.5 years here, I might have heard one or two competitors that are trying to do something on the fringes of what we do, but there's never been a deal that we've lost to a competitor yet. And now we have run into issues where a company's trying to build something internally, and they oftentimes want to try that out, and then they'll find out it's not working. They come back to us. We've had that happen a number of times, but there really is no one doing what we're doing today. And so in most cases, we're not running into competitors, and organizations are saying, wow, this is fantastic. It resonates with me. We need it. And there's really nobody else we're talking to that does this. So what we do is very unique. It's a combination of things. First, we connect ecosystems. So through a series of pre-built connectors with firms like Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics and HubSpot, and ticketing systems like Zendesk and ServiceNow, and the list goes on, as well as lots of other third-party connectors that we're linked to, like the Zapiers for integrations, or even a FedEx or UPS for shipment updates. Just across the board, we have so many integrations, a library of hundreds of these connectors that are pre-built, that are quick to use, they're reusable, so firms don't have to go out and build them. So we connect ecosystems. That's one thing we do that already is quite unique. Second is that we have a journey builder that allows you to design, build, orchestrate, and manage journeys, and be able to clone them, replicate them, tailor them for specific segments or verticals or customer types, all on the fly with a low code, no code, very easy to use system where you can add a step, change a step, clone something, make it slightly different for a different customer. Those journey building tools are linked to triggers and automations, so that as you're progressing through a journey, at every step, you can set up automations that trigger communications to internal team members, trigger communications out to merchants or to other third parties. All of those can be branded differently, they can be messaged differently, and they can be linked to SLAs so that things are happening within specific timeframes. So there's the journeys module. Then we have knowledge management, where we're able to provide internal team members with quicker access to their knowledge bases. This could be product knowledge, could be competitor knowledge, could be vertical knowledge, could be particular, support knowledge. We give them quicker access because we use AI, and we link knowledge to a specific type of customer and a specific step that they're at in a journey. So the information is highly relevant to where a customer is in a journey. And so that enables support teams to be much better equipped to solve problems for customers in real time. The other thing we offer is conversational AI, which is essentially the ability on any surface, whether it's a web surface, a mobile app, on a device, we can provide support in real time, starting with a basic bot, but then is empowered with additional support through our AI engines. We use a combination of ChatGPT from Microsoft and Bard from Google. And so we're working with the leading AI companies, because the AI itself is powerful, but inevitably to support an enterprise, you have to have all of the packaging around the AI that a lot of these firms have not developed, that we have, right? We've got these containers, we've got the web chat, we've got the bots, we've got all of this built in low code, no code, and it integrates into the knowledge and into the journeys and into the connectors, so that you're using AI, the most powerful AI, in a highly relevant way that works across the ecosystem and works for your customer. So when you add all that up, we have a platform that is very unique in the marketplace. No one has all of those elements that we have today. That's why we're working with some of the leading brands in the world. Yeah, so there are some players in the marketplace that are beginning to try to build tools that help customers with specific journeys, and that's like a customer-facing solution. But we see those as point solutions that are solving a particular customer flow. The challenge with that is that, in our experience, those are not integrated into the enterprise heavy systems that they're using, the CRM systems, the ticketing systems, other third-party systems, other homegrown developed systems that are there. And so it becomes disconnected. I mean, it might improve a particular point, what I'd call a point interaction, a journey through a particular experience. It's not an integrated solution that's going to solve the broader sets of problems. And so when we start by focusing in on the internal workflows and journeys that the enterprise and its partners are using to manage and drive the business, and we start by doing journey mapping. It's usually a half-day session. We come in, we're meeting with a very large sort of cross-functional working team within the enterprise and with their partners, and we literally go through every step in a journey and define, is this step working, what's good, what's not good, who are the teams involved, what are the databases and the systems being used, what's the customer view of this, what's the internal view of this. And once we build those journey maps and have them completed, then we start solutioning against those, and then we start by prioritizing our roadmap with what's most important to solve for the customer internally. And then we start building those journeys internally. And because the enterprise has those journeys built, it is improving those workflows significantly. There's collaboration that's happening. There's visibility that's there. There's reporting and analytics and insights to those journeys and what's happening that's never been available before. And all of that allows them to ultimately serve the customer much better. And in our view, that's the right place to start. It ultimately impacts the customer experience more than would building a point journey that's customer facing, because that is what we would call disconnected, right? And what we're trying to do is actually solve that problem by connecting the internal systems and internal workflows and enabling the enterprise to truly have the ability to serve their customers seamlessly across multiple lines of business, third parties, across all of the journeys that they go through, linking back into all of the databases and the systems that need to be updated in order for the enterprise to function.